In breaking news, there's an update from the British Transport Police that Tommy Robinson is not going to face any charges for an alleged assault at St Pancras Station last month. You'll remember that I did a video on this talking very generally about self-defence and the use of self-defence and the evidential burden that they might face if they were to prosecute him, and the fact that the CCTV footage might hinder such a prosecution. I'll come back to that in a minute, because it seems that there's more to this than it would seem at first glance, because it appears here that the alleged victim, and I choose my words carefully, does not wish to support the prosecution. Now, before I come on to that, first of all, please do subscribe to the channel if you'd like a brutally honest alternative to the mainstream media. I'll be that voice for you, because I'll tell you these things in the way that they possibly won't, and I'll give you an insight to the law. And secondly, if you want a real deep dive into the law, specifically for the use of self-defense, do consider joining as a member to my channel here. That helps and supports my channel. I've got very extensive videos going into the law on self-defense on the members section. Check that out below. And let's talk about this story. So this says that, so I have to correct the police in one thing that they've said here. I might actually hit them up on X and tell them that they've got this slightly inaccurately. So it says here, following the report of the assault at St Pancras Station on the 28th of July, detectives from BTP quickly launched a full and thorough investigation. Involved a 42-year-old man being arrested, Tommy Robinson, of course, on suspicion of GBH at Luton Airport. They say officers worked at pace to gather evidence, including CCTV footage and witness statements. Now, bearing in mind, of course, that CCTV won't necessarily have any audio. It just shows what happened. But then it says, however, the victim did not wish to provide a statement to the investigation. Now, I have to respectfully correct the police here. They're not a victim unless it's a proven offence, because they're only a victim if this alleged assault was indeed an assault and was unlawful. If indeed it transpired that he was the one provoking Tommy Robinson and he acted in self-defence, then he's not a victim of an assault if he's acted in self-defence. But of course, none of that is actually established, because there's no charges brought against Tommy Robinson, and so nothing is established either way. So just like it's an alleged assault, he's an alleged victim or complainant in the case. They did then say that we presented a file of evidence to the CPS, who are responsible for considering the evidence available, deciding whether it meets the legal threshold to charge someone with an offence. Bearing in mind there is a two-part test for prosecutions. First of all, an evidential test, and secondly, whether it's in the public interest. Now, it seems that it didn't get past the first hurdle, in that it says, following a review of the available evidence, the CPS concluded that there was not a realistic prospect of conviction, and therefore will be no criminal charges in this case. I can't overly criticise the police for passing this to the CPS. Indeed, they'd probably be criticised for not passing it to the CPS to make a charging decision, even though the alleged victim or complainant didn't want to provide a statement to support the investigation or the prosecution. And so they did want to hand that off, responsibility for making that decision, to the CPS. But I am not at all surprised that there is not a realistic prospect of conviction if the complainant himself doesn't support the prosecution and is not willing to provide a statement. Because you might infer, not to say that it's correct, but you might infer from that he may have some blame himself for provoking the reaction. He may not, but we won't know unless he provides a statement. And so one might infer, uncharitably perhaps, that he was the one that provoked the situation. But of course, social media and news outlets, etc., jumped on this, possibly jumped to conclusions, and indeed reporting heavily that Tommy Robinson was then being arrested and faced these potential charges and so on. Because when you do look at a CCTV, as we've learned from trials over the last year, when you see the first clip of CCTV, it can look very crystal clear as to what happened. But of course, then you need to look at other bits of CCTV, such as in the Amar's case, when the second bit of footage was released or leaked, then it showed more clearly what happened and ultimately resulted in Amar's being convicted of 3 out of 4 counts, and the fourth, which was charge 2, is now going back for retrial. So actually, when you see more evidence and more CCTV come out, it does give you a wider picture. So who knows what else they saw on the CCTV or what other witnesses provided statements. It does say that they did provide statements here. They did get evidence and statements from other people. However, the complainant here did not wish to provide a statement to support the investigation. Make of that what you will, but either way, if I would just say It's not necessarily the case that he's completely to blame here if he's not willing to provide a statement, but you might infer that he wasn't acting appropriately either. But either way, I thought it might be useful to provide another perspective on this, and of course, point you to my video on self-defense, because it is more and more relevant these days to know where you stand, know what the law says, know where the lines are drawn, and more importantly, just know that if you are ever called upon to act in self-defense, that you know where those legal boundaries are. The videos cannot replace legal advice, of course, and if you're ever involved in something, you should seek legal advice, but they can certainly give you a very good starting point so you understand where you are with self-defense. I hope you found that useful. Please do subscribe to the channel. I will be your voice and of an alternative to the mainstream media. I will not sugarcoat things. I will criticize where necessary. And sometimes I put across different views that maybe some people hold, I may not hold myself, so don't shoot the messenger. That's the job of an advocate. I put these views across. Let me know what you think. Please do like the video, and I'll see you next time.